Good morning, everybody. My name is Emily Witkowski, pronouns she, her, of the Maplewood Memorial Library, and welcome to day 2 of New Jersey Makers Day Live. We are so glad to have you joining us today, and we are looking forward to a morning of learning and exploration with you. New Jersey Makers Day Live is a 2-day event, yesterday and today, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. of both engaging STEM presentations, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, and hands-on projects and activities. For those of you joining us on YouTube or Facebook today, please feel free to leave your thoughts, questions, and comments here throughout the day. Who knows, they might be featured on our broadcast. We do kindly ask that any comments left on either platform be shared with respect and refrain from inappropriate or offensive language. Let's all have a fun experience together. A big thank you to our supporters who have helped to bring this event to you all today: the STEM Pathways Network, MapleWoodShop, StreamYard, Investors Bank, STEMsupplies.com, Xplorably, and the Pennsauken Public Library for making these 2 days of STEM and maker learning possible. Finally, all of our presentations and workshops today will be recorded and immediately available on our Facebook and YouTube pages after the broadcast. Thank you, and let's get to it. Our first speaker today is Dr. Madiha Jafri. Dr. Madiha Jafri received a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering, a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, and a PhD in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Old Dominion University in 2003, 2004, and 2007, respectively. Fully funded by the NASA headquarters, her accelerated PhD studies became the first pioneering work that used artificial intelligence to predict electromagnetic interference patterns on commercial aircraft. Dr. Jafri has been with Lockheed Martin since 2007 as the lead cryptography expert, designing complex cryptographic solutions for NSA certification. Alongside cryptography, she has served as the lead systems engineer for the medical signature analysis system, where she co-developed patented concepts and nanotechnology for weapons and medical signature detection. Dr. Jafri is now a senior scientist with a focus in artificial intelligence, electromagnetics, and cybersecurity. And outside of work, Dr. Jafri is a proud mom of 2 children, 8 and 10 years old, and a STEM advocate, volunteering, mentoring, and giving motivational talks on overcoming adversity and embracing diversity in STEM careers. Welcome, Dr. Jafri.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I really appreciate it. So I guess let's quickly get started. I'll share my screen, and I hope that everything works as nicely as it can possibly go. All right, let's see here. And there we go. So I hope this is working. All right. Well, thank you again for having me. I just wanted to quickly go over a little bit about my journey, and hopefully that some of it will resonate. But also, I wanted to go through some of the adversity that I've gone through as well. That life is not always perfect, and we all have our challenges. So I also wanted to kind of talk about that as well. So this isn't just about. I just don't want to talk about what is possible out there from your career perspective, but also how in life you'll have to, some of you may have to handle a few challenges to get what you want and where you want it. So, all right. So a very, very quick background about myself. I was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. My parents are originally from India and Pakistan. So, and we started, we immigrated to the US around 95. And ever since then, I've been breaking all kinds of barriers. If you meet my parents, they'll probably tell you that I'm responsible for 80% of their gray hair. So it was definitely a huge culture change, coming from Saudi Arabia to here. Now, my dad is an engineer, and I loved math and science. But when I came to the US, it was the first time I got to touch paint and art and crayons and colors. That's not necessarily encouraged in Saudi Arabia. So I loved it. So when I got to do that, I was like, you know what, Mom and Dad, I think I want to be an artist when I grow up, right? And that didn't go very well with parents who, they were like, we did not come to this country so you could just be an artist. You have to do something better than that, which was not the right thing to say, but that's what they believed. So from an artist, I was like, well, can I be an architect? That's where you get to draw, and even that wasn't there. They didn't like that either. And then I was like, well, what about a mechanical engineer, right? I'll get to draw cars and maybe a few, things in that sense in technology. And that was a field for boys, according to my parents. So they were like, no, don't do that either. And then I was like, well, okay, mechanical, what else can I draw in? So I was like, all right, civil engineering, and that was also for men. I mean, overall, in engineering in general was for men. So eventually I settled for electrical engineering, where I drew circuits, so so it was a very much a change of and throughout what I always thought that I really did made a huge sacrifice, and oh my gosh, there was art, and I'll never get to explore that anymore as I studied for engineering. But I realized though throughout the years that and I'm so glad that STEM became STEAM with an A in there for art, because if we have the artistic skills and abilities, so for me, I use my artistic abilities as a strength to connect dots across various disciplines. So as you learn, sometimes I've had to talk to doctors and engineers, and they speak literally very different languages. So how do you connect them? And you really have to use your artistic skills to be able to connect different disciplines together. So here's just a few collage of our my life here. There's my two children, and we just got our American dream. We got our puppy during COVID, so we're super happy to have her in our lives. And they're like, I love to give talks and be a part of different motivational groups, and I'm into robotics. So there's like a picture of First Robotics, and I love to stay engaged with students. So that's just a little background about myself. So from an education perspective, I'm not sure where you guys are from an audience, perspective. If you guys are in middle school, high school, so I hope some of this can resonate or if you're a parent, right? So I got my bachelor's in computer engineering in 2003. Master's in electrical engineering, and then a PhD in electrical and computer engineering. And as I was told in the introduction, I was super fortunate because when I got it, I mean, I was my parents didn't know any better, so I know they didn't know how to get scholarships or anything. So I'm so grateful that the U.S. and so many companies offer special programs for underprivileged and underprivileged students. So NASA had that program where, initially my first year in my bachelor's, I did not have any funding from them, but then even during college, I was able to apply, and they basically offered first a little bit of the funding, and then they decided to fund my entire bachelor's, master's, PhD in an accelerated PhD program at Old Dominion University. So you have that in the U.S., right? The fact that there are so many opportunities to get the financial support if that's needed. And then while I was working, so at the bottom you can see so basically what I did is this was again almost 14 years ago or a lot more now, almost 20 years ago, where back in the old days, right, you could not use your electronic devices at all on commercial aircraft because of the risk of interference. So what my research did is I basically used that's also the little red circles that you see here. Those are the interference spots. If somebody was sitting at seat 16, near the window, this is where you would have the most interference from, in this particular case, the VHF system on the aircraft. So basically my dissertation exactly pinpointed where the interference patterns would be. And then I used artificial intelligence to predict interference, on future aircraft. So now I'm when I go in on an airplanes now, and you are able to use your electronic devices. This was kind of a beginning of that research. That why can't you use it? What are the critical locations? What can we do to mitigate those interference areas? So that was my PhD work. And then while I was getting my PhD, I also got to work on my postdoctorate, which was in biomedical engineering up in Connecticut. So and there it was a completely different area, right? So it was in schizophrenia. So I got to basically look at fMRI data, so functional MRI data on different subjects with and without schizophrenia. And again, I used neural nets to do some classification of schizophrenia. So that was, again, a first, But as you can see, it's the same, like, two very different domains, and that's the beauty of artificial intelligence. Whether it was, psychology, neural, with schizophrenia, or whether it was electromagnetics and electrical engineering, you could use this artificial intelligence as a common solution across two very different domains. So that was something that I pursued back in the days, and then on the right side a little bit, while I was getting my education, I was able to do a few internships. So I got to intern at Philip Morris, and then NASA, of course, working with NASA to learn to work on my PhD. I also worked in a very small company called Applied EM, where they worked on like paint on antennas, so antennas that you can actually paint on instead of the squares or the circles that you see on top of our cars. And then, of course, the Hartford Hospital was my postdoctorate. So that was basically the summary of my education. And I think I didn't have any guidance, but what happened with me is that a lot of people guided me, right? But my parents never attended parent-teacher conference. They didn't speak English to really even understand. So I really had to kind of be my own advocate. And so I can't even be, I can't begin to thank the people who told me that bachelor's is not the only thing. You can get a master's too. And I was like, wow, and I can even get a PhD. So there were a lot of people who helped me figure out my journey. So the fact that you guys are able to hear these talks were not accessible to somebody like me back in the day. So I really hope that you are better guided than I was. And at the bottom of the screen, I like to kind of, depending on what age you are, I just kind of wanted to lay out what it takes to finish each of the from elementary school, middle, high, bachelor's, master's, PhD, postdoc, typically how long it takes to finish things. And I'll just say that only in the US, you can finish things faster. Like, as you can see, my bachelor's, I finished it in 3 years. My master's was done in 6 months. And then PhD was done in 3 years. And while I was working on a PhD, I worked on my postdoc in the same 3 years. So you can, I didn't have a life, but also like a person like me, just coming from a different culture, that wasn't something that I missed out on. I know that for my children, I would always, I would never recommend that to them, right? I would want them to have a balance. But the point is that, when people say that, oh, I don't want to do a PhD or even like, any kind of higher education, I'll be like 40 when I get out. And that's not true, right? You can do things so much faster. It all depends on your own objectives and how you want to shape your life. And how much you want to balance, and your own, your own commitments as well, to your family and to yourself, and how you want to balance things. So, all right, I do hope I get some questions from this slide from you guys. And then, so after my PhD and postdoc, I got hired by Lockheed Martin, and I've been with Lockheed Martin since 2007. So I'm just going to walk you through my journey at Lockheed and all the different things that I did. So Lockheed Martin is the largest defense contractor in the world. We have over 100,000 employees. We have products in literally in space, right? So like for example, the Mars rover is built by components of it is built by Lockheed Martin, right? So we have components in space. And then, when you come to Earth, we have components in air, like the F-35 is built by Lockheed Martin, and then all the U-2 and a bunch of other aircrafts are built by Lockheed. And then, and then you come down to land, right? So the ships, a lot of the ships out there to defend our country are usually built by components of it are built by Lockheed Martin. And then you can even talk about land. We have a lot of things, defense systems on the land, and then of course undersea we work with submarines as well. So a huge product portfolio run by a family of 100,000 employees all over the world. So a lot of opportunities exist in our company. So initially, even though my background was electromagnetics and artificial intelligence, or schizophrenia, artificial intelligence, I got hired as a cryptographer, and it was a very different fit. I actually was not a cryptographer. I knew nothing about it, but just going through that the momentum of learning, right? When you go from bachelor's to master's and PhD, all these things just teach you how to learn. So college basically is supposed to teach you how to learn. It's not necessarily what you learn, but it's how you learned it, So I basically started my first role as a cryptographer, and then I became a cryptography expert. I picked up on cryptography, worked with NSA, And then at the bottom, you see our Aegis weapon system. So that's a ship for our Navy. And basically, I work to secure the communication link between the missiles that fly out of the Aegis ships, and just making, so when the missiles fly out, they have to communicate with the ship. So that communication link needed to be secured, and that's what I worked on. And then after 2009, I was, I also get very bored. I get bored very easily. I can't work on just one thing for like people are still building Aegis weapon system, right? So I could never, some people can stay with one thing for the rest of their career. For me, 2 years is usually like my limit, where I get, I start to get like, okay, I need to learn something more. I need to challenge myself. So then I got to work on nanotechnology. So at the same time, I had a friend who got diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And then she was at Lockheed Martin. So we worked together. I went with her to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and I got to engage with the doctors there. And I was like, you know what, we are hitting, from a missiles perspective, right? Like our missiles are so fast. When we hit a missile with a missile, that's almost like hitting a bullet with a bullet. That's the accuracy of how our weapon systems work. But yet in cancer, there's like we are poisoning the entire body. We can't beat cancer, and it made no sense to me that how come you're not able to fight something that's on land, and it's stable, it's right in front of you, and it's like it's on the operation table. How come you cannot kill cancer? So I got involved with that. And basically this is one of the patents that I worked on, which is basically an exploded version of a cancer detector. And Lockheed Martin is not into cancer. I just want you guys to know that, right? But that's not our product. So what I did is I flipped it just to make sure that there was and I also made it a biological and weapon detection as well. So when our soldiers are out in the field, we want them to be able to detect anthrax or whatever biological weapon is out there. They need to be able to detect that. But you just change the antigens, and like you can detect cancer. So anyways, it's so you have to be sometimes clever with your work. That what are you doing at work that they want, and then how do you get your own passion out of it as well, right? So I was more passionate about cancer than I was about weapons detections. But you have to sometimes this was but I mean, of course, the creativity is always welcomed in your career if you want to get what you want to do what you want to do. So after 2011, then I got itchy again, but like you're used to it. It had been my 2 years. So then I got accepted into the Advanced Technical Leadership Program at Lockheed Martin. So it's basically and what this program did, and this is a quick like screenshot of our Lockheed portfolio. You see our airplanes and our missiles and our space shuttles and all of that, right? So and our ships. So I got to learn about the full portfolio and how business works. So that's something that unless you get an MBA, engineers don't really have a good sense of how business works. And actually, like in the cancer detector, what really was the most frustrating part for me was, this is such a good product. Why won't Lockheed Martin invest in it? I don't understand. Or I would have some other solutions, and I'd be like, why isn't Lockheed Martin investing in this, right? So, but then when I got into the leadership program, I learned, okay, what is a return on investment? How do you figure out what are you going to invest in? What are stocks? What are, and how does leadership work? And I learned to look up, because I mean, again, you have to remember coming from Saudi Arabia, and you can even probably notice the accent in my language right now, how, I was, and I still am an introvert, so how do you learn to speak to leaders? So this was basically the program that kind of helped me become a little bit more comfortable with speaking and learning about strategy and business and how things basically work in that sense. So when you think about your career, again, think about that as well, that it's not just about math and science, it's also about bringing the whole picture together. And to do that, you need to understand the business landscape as well, and then of course the ability to communicate. So, all right. So then after that, after I got done with the program, then I was very fortunate to become a manager, so a leader of a cybersecurity team. So the crypto part kind of, held with me, and I basically became a people leader. So now this was a new learning curve for me, because working with people is a completely different ballgame. It's a completely different skill set. where you have people, and they have these issues where you're like, oh gosh, this is not what I mean. Like, how do there were conflicts that you had to handle, and more. So, and also, how do you help somebody else's career? Because so far I was only focused on my own career. So now, how do you help other people and help them build and find their path, right? So that's what this helped me get into. And then also what this did is that kind of I mean, the role was basically to protect some of our our assets, Lockheed Martin assets in Morristown, New Jersey. And then after that, finally in 2017, the DoD started the JAKE, Joint AI Center, and so finally, DoD started to officially pursue artificial intelligence. And when they did that, I got a chance to go back to my passion from PhD. And ever since then, I've been basically working on the artificial intelligence portfolio, but I'm connecting it all right now. I'm basically looking at whether it's nanotechnology or the weapon system or cybersecurity. I'm just pulling it all, and I'm figuring out where to insert artificial intelligence in the Lockheed Martin portfolio. So that's just a quick summary, and it's a lot, I know, but I hope that from these bits and pieces, maybe you can think about starting in a direction. But the key message here is that in your career, like as you can see here, it's all over the map. Nanotechnology, like cybersecurity, and then cryptography. It's all over the map, but it does come together. So you just have to make sure that you accept those fire assignments, jump in it, and learn new things. And but do try to make sure that eventually it does converge, in one way or another. But I think more important than this message of my career journey is how my personal journey kind of went with it. So I guess what I want to tell you guys is that so in like 2000. Oh, and then yeah, exactly. I was accepted as an associate fellow in December of 2020. So that just happened. So I'm super excited about that. So now from a personal perspective, though, I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit. Where I got married in 2004 before I started my PhD, and that was because my culture, my parents, and specifically my mom, who didn't understand the new and the old, right, the culture. She was worried about, like, gosh, if you get any more educated, nobody will want to marry you. So you have to get married first before you can go. Like, that was just how the culture went, right? So I got married in 2004, and then I worked on my PhD. So some of you may have those limitations, and some of you may not, right? So and I just have to say that, like, it was much that your responsibilities make things harder to achieve things, or they may not, right? Like, I mean, when I was with my parents, my mom would like spoon feed me while I was literally, like, I would be studying for an exam, and she would come and she'd be like, just eat, right? And that was so easy. I miss those days, right? But then when you're married, now you have more responsibilities and everything, and then you have to study for and so completing my PhD was much harder than any of the other studies that I'd done before. And then, of course, then baby number one, I had my son in 2009, and then I was blessed with a daughter in 2011. And so all of those, that's just things that, and this is what happened in my life, pretty much structured as the way the culture kind of, required it. But I mean, a lot of people have their children before they get a chance to complete their education, so or they may, or they may not have children, or or they may have a sick family member or something else, right? So you always have these challenges. Every single person in your life has something happening in the background. So as I went through this, I really developed a lot of empathy, because just balancing it all, I could see my own performance going down from a work perspective, right? Because I had to balance everything, and I wanted to make sure that I did give my children the time they needed. And then in 2013, unfortunately, I went through a divorce, and that was another very, and right when I'm getting into this, in the middle of my leadership development program, so it was a very difficult time. So my performance was probably at the lowest point, at that time. But so there, I have to give a shout out to the allies at work who continue to enable me. If I had to go on a leave, they allowed me to go on medical leaves, or take a break, or to go on vacation, or help me with like where can I get childcare and all of that. So it was so empathy is a key that was not really emphasized when I originally became in our old days, right? Empathy was not really that emphasized, but really we have to keep the personal life balance in mind. In 2017, the friend I told you about who had cancer, who I worked with, she passed away. And that was a huge blow because I lost an ally there as well. And then in 2020, my dad had a stroke. Of course, the pandemic happened. So like I guess all of this is just to show you that things happen, right? And things are going to you make these goals, and then you just have to make sure that you never let go of the goals, but be flexible, because in your life things will happen as well. Something more that I like to add on is that after the divorce, so there are not only just these events, but these events also change you personally as well. So when I went through my divorce, I realized how crucial, coming from Saudi Arabia to living here, how important women's rights were. I was always thankful for what I had, but I didn't realize how much more had to be done, and especially for the women who are from the Middle East and in that area. So I got heavily engaged with women's rights. And then when I became a manager, right, for cybersecurity, I realized how terrible we were doing from a racial diversity perspective. I didn't even know that racial diversity was a problem, right? I was so happy to be in the United States that, oh my gosh, I can drive here, right? Like I can do so much here. So, and I never even paid attention to racial diversity and that being a problem. So that became a key concept for me, something that I started to pursue. And then my friend who she belonged to the LGBTQ community, that is completely forbidden, right? In the Middle East and that area, you get stoned to death, right? So that's the kind of that was something that I just didn't even grow up to learn about, right? So those things started to really bother me too. That how can people be treated like that? And so I became a fierce LGBTQ plus ally, especially after her death. So these are things that you grow into as well, so to not just focus on the career, but your personal events in life, make you take stands for different things that you may not all do right today. And by the way, I'm so proud of the generation. Like my children will tell you they're standing up for women's right today, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so late. I was in my, in my 30s when I stood up for this stuff. So, so like always make sure that there's that balance, and events will happen and they'll shape you into hopefully very, very good and balanced human beings. So this is just a quick summary of myself, and this is the last slide here. I would just say that find your passion. So there's no one right path. And I think for me, I always looked for that one right path because I didn't know what the path was. I had no role models, right? And my mom wasn't allowed to go to college, so she was scared of what I was doing as the bachelor's and master's and now PhD. She was terrified, so I didn't know who to look up to. So you have to discover, create, and embrace yours. It's okay to not have a role model, especially for the minorities out there. You may not see anybody like you who has done anything like you like you out there, right? So you be prepared to create and embrace your own path, even when the world tells you. Like literally for my PhD, everybody, this entire culture told me to not do it, right? So and that the fact that, oh, my divorce is because, see, you let a daughter get too educated and this is what happens, she gets divorced, so it's like it's like when the whole world may tell you that what you're doing is not right, but you have to believe in yourself, right? And I can't emphasize that enough, that you have to learn to create and embrace your own path. And also acknowledge and embrace every season of life. Like I told you, like there were the good seasons. There's going to be a good time where everything is perfect. People spoon feeding you, and literally, and then there'll be times when you are, you're trying to survive in like 1 or 2 hours of sleep. So acknowledge that. Forgive yourself for your shortcomings in your difficult moments. It's okay to not be perfect. We are so privileged to be in the United States. Just to tell you, this is, here I was showing you my timeline, right? The sad fact is that women in Saudi Arabia finally started driving in June of 2018. And to this day, they're fighting. There are women in jail right now because they allowed the women to drive, but you have to have a male escort with you at all times. So what's the point of driving if you have to have a male escort with you all the time? So anyways, there are all these restrictions. So imagine having your life just be, I just wonder how many Einsteins are out there, and I worry about, what if those women have the cure of cancer that we're just not allowing to even drive, so because genius is everywhere, right? And so the fact that we are here is a super blessing, no matter how difficult your life is, you can definitely get out, and think more optimistically. If you are college aged, high school aged, learn how to learn. What works for you. Is it a legal notepad, or is it a blank sheet of paper? Do you like yellow paper? Do you like notepads, or note cards, index cards? What makes you learn? Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? So really figure that out, because that's what you need for the rest of your life. You will, whatever you learn in college, and like my children tell me, like, Mom, what's the point of this? Like, we'll never use it again. Like, guys, you're not doing this so that you remember these facts until this is only to learn how to learn. It's an exercise, and you need that exercise when you come to the industry. And of course, end goal is to make this world a better place, and pay it forward by mentoring and helping others. That's so important. That I think, as you saw in my career, right, in the beginning, it was all about me. I'm going to this, I'm going to do this, and I looked, I basically embraced my allies, and I took from people, but then you don't have to wait until you're in your 30s to give. So now I'm teaching my children to volunteer now, because we're all privileged. Even as 5-year-olds, right? We can give to others, and we can learn to give very early. We don't have to wait. And then I think the embrace your challenge. It's someone else's dream, So all my challenges, and this is an example I would say, is that my mom, right? So she skipped 3 grades when she was in Pakistan, growing up, but she wasn't allowed to go to college, so she got married at 16, because that's okay to do back then, and she had 5 of us children by 30. So when she was just not allowed. Imagine somebody who can skip 3 grades to never be allowed to go to college. She's a brilliant woman, and then so even but a terrified woman, right? She wanted us daughters to get educated, more educated than her, the right that was taken from her, but she was scared of what would happen to the daughters, like the divorce and all that, if they do get educated, right? So any challenge that I go through, I know that it's my mom's dream. Like the fact that I'm having a bad day in college, or I'm having a bad day at work. I know my mom would have loved to just go have that one day of college, or that one day of work. So accept, embrace your challenge. And then allies matter, so whether, so if you are we are all actually, like, for example, for me, I'm able-bodied, so we all have privileges, and the world is made for certain people, right? And if we fit that mold, then it's we have to help the ones who don't fit that mold. So, and also arm yourself with diverse mentors and pay it forward. So I think that is all I had. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Jafri. And I so appreciate your humanization of STEM, right? That there's this human element to the work that you're doing. I so appreciate that. We did have a question from Aditi. It says, hello, Dr. Jafri. I was wondering what advice you would have about planning your middle school and high school years to better prepare for later in life.
Middle and high school years to better prepare for life. Okay, so I'll talk about, I have 2 different perspectives on this, right? I've seen it happen so again, if you were to look at the culture that I come from, I know that, and I haven't figured it out, so just take this with a grain of salt, right? So I've seen parents who will put their children in like 50 activities, and and think that that's preparing them, right? And I don't know if that's the right way, right? Because I did that for my children as well. They would go in Kumon ones, and then karate, and then swimming, and then and then dance classes, and then and football practice. So I don't know if that's the right thing, because I think the most important thing that I learned was communication and empathy. It wasn't the rigor of the getting degrees and all of that. That wasn't the rigor. So I would say that building friendships, learning to speak, and learning to trust, having your trust broken, is super important, right? So especially, like, I would say that from a women in I would, like, for example, for Lockheed Martin, it's we have 100,000 employees. I would be lying if I told you that women are still not struggling, or minorities are still not struggling, right? There's racism, there's sexism. So to tackle that, you need real world experiences. You need to figure out, how do you find allies? Who are the good people? Who are the people who are on your side? So and who can help you? So you don't get that from Kumon and football and all of that, right? You get that from making and breaking friendships and figuring out how people work. So I feel that for the real, so that's super important. For the high school years, I would also say that engaging and volunteering is super important as well, because when you volunteer, and also, like, for example, I know now a lot of high school students are also on LinkedIn as well. So they are building connections right now with the professional network. So you have to be careful. From a youth perspective, make sure there are creeps out there, so you have to make sure that your parents are engaged and everything. Definitely wait until you're in high school to connect on a social media site like that. But I would say that, yeah, just volunteering really helps. The stars shine there, and learning how to go through the rigor of learning something completely new, pulling together, for example, hackathons or something, or speaking at an event, or pulling this kind of an event together, maybe where you bring in speakers and then you become friends with speakers. Networking, finding mentors as a high school student really helps too. So I hope that answers a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great answer. What do you think is the future of artificial intelligence?
Oh gosh. So I've been pushing artificial intelligence for more than 14 years. It's not even the future, it's the present, right? AI needs to be basically everywhere. So we all need to prepare for it. One question that a lot of my STEM students ask is, Dr. Jafri, how do we get engaged in AI? And I say that artificial intelligence is a tool, right? It just like Microsoft PowerPoint was a tool, and Excel was a tool, right? It's a tool. So continue to remember, what are you passionate about? Was it nanotechnology? Was it chemistry? Did you love physics? So remember that too, because we still need the domains. We need people to build radars. We need people to build biomedical devices. So AI is going to overlay all of that. So pay attention to artificial intelligence, but you don't have to be the programmer who creates the models for AI. You don't need to know how neural nets get programmed. Some of you can definitely go there, but not all of you. So continue to pursue, find your passion. And then more important for the future of AI is figuring out and making sure that we get rid of the bias, and make sure that we insert AI in an ethical way. So focus on your product, and then put AI on top of that. So
fantastic, thank you. And I think we have one last burning question. We need to know the name of your puppy.
So thank you. So that was a big one. We went in when we were going to go and meet our puppy. We had thought of Luna. We were like, okay, Luna is a nice name, but when we went and we saw her, we were like, oh my gosh, she's a dream. She's a wish. Luna just doesn't fit her. So we went to the other. We basically started to search up what is. In different languages, how do you say wish? Because she's our American wish, our American dream. So the name that came up was from Swahili. It's Amani, Amani. So Amani means a wish in Swahili. So she's our wish, our little dream.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jafri, for that wonderful presentation. I know I was definitely inspired, and I hope our viewers were as well. So thank you again.
Thank you again for having me, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you. And now we are delighted to bring up our next presenter who will be working with us on a hands-on paper engineering project, and that's Paula Frisch of Dazzling Discoveries. So Paula is a visual artist, educator, and lifelong maker. Paula holds a master's in fine arts from Social Practice CUNY and is currently earning her MA in developmental psychology at Teachers College, Columbia University. Paula is also a Dazzling Discoveries STEM Education Center in New York City and co-creator of Engineering with Paper. Dazzling Discoveries STEM Education Center began in 2002 to provide hands-on learning opportunities to students and teachers in New York City. What began as a small after-school program has grown into 2 storefront locations, partnerships with dozens of schools, a year-round STEM camp for kids and teens, and 2 product lines, Dazzling's Cardboard, Engineering Kits, and Engineering with Paper downloadable packets. Nearly 2 decades later, Dazzling Discoveries, now run by Goblin and Paula Frisch, has established itself as a unique resource for bringing hands-on learning into homes and classrooms through accessible and affordable projects. You can learn more about Dazzling Discoveries at dazzlingdiscoveries.com. Welcome, Paula.
Hi, everyone. I see my camera's a little funny at the moment. I'm going to be adjusting it, so you're going to see my hands. So I know it's a little cut off just for the moment. So hello again. My name is Paula Frisch. Welcome to New Jersey Makers Day. Thanks so much for having us at the program today. We're going to be doing a hands-on project, and I'll tell you what you'll need more in just a minute, but we're going to be making a catapult. Just a little more introduction. I'm the Assistant Director of Dazzling Discoveries. We're a STEM education center based on the Upper West Side of Manhattan in New York City. And we run virtual and in-person programs, camp and after schools. And we've also created a whole series of projects that are all paper-based. And we call it our Engineering with Paper project packets. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So I'm going to adjust my camera down, take you for a little trip. There we go. Okay, hello. So today, we are going to need 3 sheets of paper. So gather your supplies as I'm showing you. 3 sheets of paper. I'm using colorful paper, but it's not construction paper. It's the same as regular copy paper. Regular white copy paper is fine. Scrap paper is fine. Old magazine paper is great. So we need 3 pieces of paper. We'll also need tape and scissors. So have scissors that are comfortable for you, kid size, grown-up size, whatever kind of tape you have. I like to use masking tape because it has a good amount of stickiness and it's easy to rip. I don't need to cut it. I can just rip it with my fingers. So I'll be using masking tape. I have scissors and 3 sheets of paper. And the project we're going to be making today is a catapult. We're going to build a catapult game. So that means, and this is all just paper, tape, and scissors. We're going to be making a paper catapult. And then we'll build targets. And we can do different sizes. We'll see how much time we have, but build targets. And then you create your own catapult game just from paper, tape, and scissors. And we're going to be repeating certain shapes. You'll see as we go. These are very useful shapes for making lots of different kinds of projects. So here's a test of the catapult. There we go. Okay, so gather your supplies. We need paper and tape and scissors. And we will get started. Oh, and I will say one thing about the tape. So here's a little trick. It really helps, especially if you have tape the way that I do that's not on any kind of dispenser. I always rip or cut a bunch of smaller pieces and put them on the edge of, I'm using a mug. You can put them on the edge of your table, somewhere so that you can grab them easily as you go, as we're building. Because it's hard when you're holding the project to put it down, pick up the tape, rip a piece, you lose where you were in the project. So I always do this, and I keep doing this as I go. And I really recommend this for families, kids, teachers. Makes a big difference, helps with the smoother workflow. So as I'm talking now, just take a few minutes and rip 6 or 8 pieces of tape, put them somewhere that you can grab them easily. You're going to need, each of these pieces is about 1 inch, but it does not have to be exact. It just helps to have that ready. Okay. So, and also I'd love to know who's watching, where you're watching from. So you can type that into the comments. Okay, and this catapult project is a free download on our site. So you can go to dazzlingdiscoveries.com. It's the same as engineeringwithpaper.com. Those websites both lead to the same place. So there's a free 1-page download that has all the steps that we're going to do today. If you want to repeat or share that. Okay, so we're going to start with 1 full sheet of paper. The important parts of the catapult are the catapult arm. That's this piece. This piece called the fulcrum, and the fulcrum is what lifts the catapult arm off of the table so that it can rock back and forth. And the last part is this loop. And I'll show you, once we're testing it, how much this loop makes a difference for aiming the balls. We'll also, I think I forgot to show, we're going to be making our balls out of paper. Okay, we're ready to build. So the first part we're going to make is the catapult arm. That's this piece. So start with a full sheet of paper. And when you look at a regular rectangle piece of paper, you'll see there are longer edges. So these are your longer edges and shorter edges. So we are going to fold in half the short edge to the short edge. So let's do that now. Fold in half, short edge to short edge. And we know that we're folding in half when the corners line up. So line up your corners and really press the paper when you're doing your folding. Press it down. So that's folded in half, kind of like a book. And then we're going to fold again. So the reason that we're folding right now, doing these 2 folds, is to make more layers, to have 4 layers of paper. We'll see in just a minute. By folding and folding, we've now created 4 layers of paper. So that's going to make our catapult arm stronger and more rigid than if we were just doing this shape with a single piece, a single layer. So we can make the same shape, and we use this shape for roller coaster tracks, for roads, for ramps, all kinds of things. But sometimes, for example, in the catapult right now, it really helps to have those 4 layers. Okay, so you have your folded sheet. And now, actually, take a minute and just wave it around so you can see how rigid it is on its own. So because we have the 4 layers, it's pretty rigid, but I can see that it's easily bending. So here's a cool trick. Fold the long edges in just a little bit to make walls. These are the walls of the catapult. And I know you have to squish it because now we have 4 layers of paper. It's a little harder to fold, but so we're making walls. And do that on both sides. Folding, really press the folds. Walls on both sides. So it should look kind of like a U shape, 2 walls. And now wave it around. Can you tell the difference? So just by folding the paper in that way, you make it much stronger and much more rigid. So even if we had just 1 layer of paper and we were making this shape, it would make a big difference. Pretty amazing. Just folding paper can make it so much stronger. And of course, since we have the 4 layers, as I showed you, that helps too. So I can see that these layers are coming apart a little bit. This is optional. If yours is staying folded, you might not need this, but I'm going to just tape the layers together so that it doesn't accidentally unfold. So tape the layers together, and there is the catapult arm. Okay, we're ready for the fulcrum. So the fulcrum is this piece. So we start with a new full sheet of paper, and we're going to start the same way. We're going to fold the short edge of the paper to the short edge of the paper, folding in half that way. And line up the corners. Make sure you press. Whenever you fold, really press the fold. Okay, and we are going to roll it up to make a cylinder shape. But before we roll it, and this is another trick that I highly recommend, I do this with my students, take your piece of tape, put the tape at the one of the short edges of the paper, flip it over so the sticky side of the tape is facing up, and then we're going to roll. So it really helps to put the tape first. For making a lot of creations with paper, put the tape first and then do the action of making whatever shape you are creating. So we're going to start at the other end, the other short edge, and roll it up. It's a little tricky with the 2 layers. If you're having trouble rolling, you can also cut the fold and then roll it. It's a little finicky. Just keep rolling it up. So when we get to the end, the tape is already there to close the cylinder. So we didn't have to hold it and grab the tape. Instead, the tape was already there. So I'm just going to put an extra piece of tape, close off the edges there that are open. And I will say that this catapult project we featured in the New York Times. So there's a catapult made out of newspaper. You go on the New York Times website or on our website, and it follows very similar steps. It's just formatted for a bigger piece of paper and softer. So because newspaper is so much softer than regular paper. So we have our fulcrum and catapult arm. And before we do anything else, so these are going to go together, but before we do anything else, let's make a few paper balls so that we can test our catapult. So from that third sheet of paper that you have, use your scissors and cut a strip. This is maybe 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches wide. It does not have to be exact. We're going to cut this into some smaller rectangles. So we have the strip. I'm going to move the paper from underneath so that you can see it better. Okay. And I see some people are just joining us. We did start a little early. That's okay. We have all of the instructions that I'm showing you today are on our website, engineeringwithpaper.com. So it's a free download and it follows the exact same steps. So if you missed anything or you want to repeat, you can download the page from our website. And there's also the newspaper version if you have newspaper at home. Okay, so we're going to make some paper balls. We just crumple up the paper. We just need some small rectangles, crumple up the paper. They don't have to be perfectly round the way they would when we make roller coasters. We make paper balls and we usually cover them with tape so that they're nice and round and they roll well. That is not as important for the catapult. So make a whole bunch of these because we're going to be launching quite a lot. And it's good to have them on hand. And then, of course, we'll pick them up later. Okay. So now that we have some projectiles, some paper balls, some things to launch, we're going to test our arm with the fulcrum. So try in a few different positions. So you can see now, I'm putting the catapult arm the fulcrum all the way to one end of the catapult arm, how is that going to launch differently than if the fulcrum is in the middle, if it's somewhere in between? So do some testing right now. So we put the ball on the lower end, the end that's on the table, and then quickly hit the catapult arm. So you don't have to hit very hard. That's one of the tricks. You don't have to hit hard, you just have to hit quickly. So let's try another one. I'm going to put my fulcrum closer to the middle. And, oh, that one did not go very far. It's a little hard when things aren't taped together. And as you can see, the ball is sliding off the back. So that's partly why we're going to add a loop in a little while. Okay. One more test, just because it's fun to test it. Maybe I'll go this way. Wow. You couldn't see, but that went almost to the ceiling. Okay, so let's connect the fulcrum to the catapult arm right around the middle. So I'm going to take a nice long piece of tape. Wrap that piece of tape around the fulcrum halfway, so it's only taping just one half. And I'm going to lay it down on the back, the flat side of the catapult arm. And press the tape. So really important thing with tape is make sure that wherever you're using tape, you're pressing the sticky part of the tape against the paper, because it will only stick if it's really squished against the paper. My students always practice that. Make sure there's no air bubbles between the tape and the paper. Okay, so that feels secure, attached. So let's try it again. It's really important to just keep testing as you go. Keep trying out, see what's happening, see if there's any adjustments to make. So I'm noticing that as I launch, first of all, the ball keeps sliding off the back. So that's an adjustment I'm going to want to make. And also, it's launching straight up. I want it to launch more outward or more horizontally rather than vertically, because I want to turn this into a game. So we're going to be making targets. And in order to get the ball into the target, it's going to be better if it can launch horizontal rather than straight up. So that's what we're going to deal with right now. We're going to make a loop by cutting the end of the catapult arm a little bit. Doesn't matter which end, if your fulcrum is basically in the middle. We're going to cut about half an inch through all the layers of the catapult arm. So the arm was long enough. It's okay to take a little bit off. So we now have this strip. Unfold it just once. So it's still 2 layers of paper. We're going to use this to make a loop. On our example, here's the loop. So we're using this strip to make a loop or a cylinder. You may have noticed the shapes that we've used so far, there's a cylinder. We're about to make another cylinder. When we make our target, that's going to be a cylinder. And we also have this track shape, the shape that we used for our catapult arm. And that is the same shape that we're going to use for the backboard. So in all of our engineering with paper projects, we focus on these specific shapes and many others that are versatile and can be used for a lot of different projects. It's a way of teaching hands-on skills and building lots of projects by having these shapes repeating along with many other shapes. So we have our 2-layer strip. I'm going to put the tape first. There we go. So the sticky side of the tape is up, and I'm going to measure it in the catapult arm. So I want it to touch the walls of the catapult arm. So I just set it in there to measure, and now I'm going to close it off. So we have that kind of like a cup or a loop, a cylinder. And now we tape it in. So take a piece of tape and attach the walls of the catapult to that loop on both sides. If you're following along now, please let me know how it's going. I can't see you, but I hope you're having fun. And let me know what's happening wherever you are. Okay, so there's our catapult. Let's test it out. So we quickly, doesn't have to be hard. How's yours launching? Okay, great. Let's make a target. So we're going to use the remainder of that third sheet of paper, the one that we used a little while ago when we cut a strip and we made the paper balls. And we're going to cut a few more strips. I'm going to cut the rest of the paper into strips of different widths. This is up to you. It does not have to be exact, but a wider strip will be a taller target. Okay, so we're going to roll this into a cylinder the same way we did when we made the loop, when we made the fulcrum. And we're going to put the tape first on the short edge. So the sticky side is up. And that makes it easier to just curve the paper around and press the tape down to hold it in place. So there's our cylinder. Let's test that before we do anything else. So here's the challenge. Can we get the ball into the target? Almost. So one thing I noticed is that the ball often goes over the top. Just flies right over the top of the target. So think about in basketball, what would you have behind the basket to help the ball hit and fall in rather than just flying over? You'd have a backboard. So let's make one right now out of one of those strips that we cut. So let's cut a rectangle from the strip. So we can use this as our backboard as is, just as a flat piece of paper. We could attach it like that. But as I showed you with the catapult arm, folding the walls makes the paper stronger. It makes it more rigid. So instead of attaching just this flat piece to the back of my target, I recommend folding the edges in a little bit. That will help it stand up straight and stay rigid. So similar, well, the same as the shape that we made for the catapult arm, folding the walls. This is a track. So we use this for paper roller coasters, for ramps, for roads and cityscapes, for all kinds of things. Okay, let's attach the backboard to the cylinder. So I'm going to put my tape into the cylinder target with the sticky side out. And then I'm going to set it onto the backboard and tape it in place. And then flip it over and do the same thing on the back. So tape the back, the front and the back. And there's the target. Okay, so let's try again. See if we can get it in. And what else can you add? So what adjustments can you make to the target, make different kinds of targets to turn this into your own game? Pretty fun. Pretty satisfying how well it launches. Oh, not that time. Let's see if I can get it in. So you might make bigger targets, taller targets, farther away. Oh, that one almost got in. I'm gonna cut. I need some more paper balls because I've launched them all over the room. So I'm gonna cut a few more, crumple them up. So another challenge, once you have the target, is to make something that will bring the ball back. So if the ball were to hit the target, what would help it roll down and come back to you? So you could make a kind of a slide. And the shapes that you already made today, I'll show you in just a minute, can be used to make a slide. So I'm just crumpling to have a few extra balls. Okay. So we have one strip left. To make a slide that attaches to the target, we're going to make the same shape that we used for the backboard and for the catapult arm, that track shape with the walls. So fold the long edges up. And there's the track. There's the slide. So how can you attach that slide to your target? Either in the front or the back. You design a slide for your target or other kinds of targets. So turn this into a game. So if anyone wants to share how their catapult game is going, if they have any questions, again, this is a free project to download. It's a one-page download you can follow on screen on our website, engineeringwithpaper.com. We also have some other free projects, so check that out. And if anybody has any questions, type them into the chat. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Paula. Hi, Paula. I'm just going to mute you really quick, and I'm going to ask you to unmute because we're getting a little bit of feedback. But I wanted to ask you a question, so I'm just muting you real quick. Just unmute when you're ready to answer. How do you develop your projects for Dazzling Discoveries? And just make sure you unmute. Yeah.
Yes, I just didn't see the unmute button. Let me adjust this up back to me. Hi. Okay, so our projects, we have been doing projects for about 20 years on Dazzling Discoveries. And the Engineering with Paper projects, we started about a year and a half ago that are based on the paper-based projects that we've been doing in our programs. So catapults, roller coasters, all kinds of engineering projects, building houses. We have always been very paper-based because it's so accessible and flexible, easy to build with. So about a year and a half ago, we tried to synthesize those into packets that we could share with teachers. And then, of course, a year ago, when everything went virtual quickly, we realized it was the perfect way to be able to do hands-on projects with kids and to share that with teachers. So these are based on many years of projects with kids in our space and our camps and after schools, and then brought onto downloadable format in the last year.
That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about maybe one of your favorite projects? And if you have it near you or have other projects near you, could you maybe show us on your camera?
Sure. I will show you the roller coaster project, which is right behind me. So we make paper roller coasters, also called marble runs sometimes. And we also have a New York Times feature of this project, and it's on our website. So the roller coaster, and this is a great example because the shapes that we just practiced with the catapult, we made cylinders and we made tracks. And those are the same shapes that make up the roller coaster. So that's very essential to how we teach. We focus on the core shapes and teaching kids how to build certain shapes that they can use again and again in different projects. So that's the roller coaster. It goes down, around. There's a few ways to make curves and turns. I also have a project right here. This is our vertical axle spinner. So it's kind of like a carousel ride or a big swing ride. It's part of our wheel and axle series. So it has a, yes. So I love doing amusement parks, houses. I love all the projects that, any project really, you can just keep going and keep adding to it.
I love that. And I know that you mentioned the New York Times thing, and I know that was in the at-home section, which was a new addition during COVID. I was wondering if you could tell us more about how that started, if they reached out to you or if you reached out to them, how you guys kind of got involved with each other.
Yeah, that was really just an amazing connection and coincidence of timing, because we saw that they were doing paper-based projects and we knew that we had lots of paper-based projects. So we reached out to them and we said, we're an education center. We have lots of projects for families and kids. Here are some ideas. And they said, oh, great. And then it has turned into every few months, we try to share projects and hopefully have more things in the New York Times, because that's really, it's fun for us. I'm a native New Yorker and so is Godwin. So it means a lot to be in the New York Times. It's been fun.
I love that. And then I would just like to know, is there anything that you sort of see as like essential engineering to your paper projects? Like, how does this then go into sort of more traditional engineering that kids may want to pursue in their careers in the future? How does sort of your programs apply to some of those more traditional engineering projects that they may do in the future?
Yeah, I think in so many ways, just breaking it down into simple supplies and simplifying concepts so that learning about stability, learning how basic mechanisms work, like the wheel and axle, all the simple machines, that when we focus on paper-based, it really helps us and students focus on what's really happening and learning the technique and the mechanism and not getting too distracted by fancy supplies or how a specific kit fits together. Because these are materials that we all always have around us, and it just levels the playing field and gives everyone a way to explore and keep building and be creative without seeing engineering only in a certain pocket or in a certain kit, or just, I think, helps make it more accessible. And that's our goal.
I love that. And then just to close that, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the other things that you guys offer at Dazzling Discoveries and how people can get that information and learn more about you and participate in your other projects.
Yeah, thanks. So we run virtual and in-person camp. We just started in person starting in January, but so any day that school is closed, we have virtual and in-person camp. Coming up the last 2 weeks of March, we'll be running camps. So we do all hands-on programs, whether it's virtual or in person, it's all hands-on. It's a lot of paper-based engineering. We play games, that kind of thing. So we do camps whenever school is closed. And then we also run after-school programs. So the last year, we've been in after-school, basically since things went virtual. We shifted and have been doing our after-school programs virtual. So we're in a bunch of schools based in New York City for the after-school program, just because we used to be in person. So that's mostly where we are, but we've also been doing workshops for schools, kind of field trip type things where we lead STEM nights or fundraisers, and we do hands-on projects. And our website is dazzlingdiscoveries.com. And you'll also see our engineering with paper there. We have a bunch of free downloads, lots of projects, and more information about what we do.
Awesome, thank you. And I think I have one more quick question. Sorry, I know that in our intro, we talked a little bit about your Dazzlinks project. Can you tell us a little bit more about that too?
Yeah, I have them in this room. As you can see, this is kind of an art creative room, but I have them just not right in front of me. Dazzlings are cardboard engineering kits. So they have holes, they're beams with holes and dowels. Actually, let me just grab right here. Just quickly. So they're cardboard beams and cardboard shapes. So we have two versions, and these fold up kind of like the track shape so that they have walls, and we use dowels and pipe cleaners to connect them. And you can make all kinds of things. So if you go on our Instagram, that's a great place to see the different projects. It's called Dazzlinks. So from Dazzling Discoveries to Dazzlinks, and that's also on our website. These are flattened right now, but it all starts as cardboard. They're completely recyclable. They're really durable. So they're used again and again. You can make lots of projects with these. And they come apart really quickly, which is especially useful for teachers when you need to take things apart quickly. So we connect with dowels and just folding up the walls so you can see. And then we use wooden dowels and connect. And these come as shapes and beams. So we have 2 separate kits that are good for different kinds of things. So we connect like that, and then the dowel goes through. So those are our Dazzlinks. Thanks for asking about that.
Yeah, no, those are awesome. I just wanted to point people's attention to them because they're super cool and super fun. Thank you so much for your fun workshop, Paula. That was great. Again, dazzlingdiscoveries.com. You guys can see more of their projects there. And thank you again, Paula. We really appreciate it. And before we introduce our next fantastic presenter, we would like to share a brief message from one of our great New Jersey small business supporters, MapleWoodShop.
My name is Rhea and I'm going to 5th grade.
Hi, my name is Job and I'm going to 8th grade.
My name is Aaron and I'm going into 2nd grade.
My name is Gil and I'm going into 6th grade.
I thought it was going to be boring, and then when I walked in there and we started making it, it was really fun.
Sometimes if they need help, I will help them. Sometimes if I need help, they will always be able to help me.
Something's always going to go wrong, so it's what you do to fix it is what matters.
You can learn so much, and you can learn big lessons like hard work pays off. If you do something good and you worked hard on it, then it's going to come out good.
Makes me feel really proud of myself and great because I worked really hard on this and it turned out really well. I'm proud of all the projects that I've made. I think it'll help me if I need to do house repairs.
Accomplished. Yeah, all the hard work and going into it, it feels accomplishing.
I feel like I accomplished something that was, it might be small, but to me it meant something big.
Thank you so much to MapleWoodShop and to all of our supporters that are making New Jersey Makers Day live possible for us today. And I just want to give a quick PSA about sort of what New Jersey Makers Day is about. So traditionally, I think some of you that are watching with us have probably gone to your local library or to your school and participated in a full day of hands-on activities. This happens across the state. And it's an amazing opportunity for STEM to kind of come to life, for it to become approachable, kind of like what Paula was just talking about, making sure it's accessible and that everyone has access to those things. And that's how we think of New Jersey Makers Day. And when COVID happened last year, we had to sort of quickly shift gears. And we are here now because of some thought behind what we might think of as a virtual experience for New Jersey Makers Day. So we really hope that this is sort of an opportunity for you to think about STEM in your own home, think about STEM in your own lives, and how you can do hands-on projects to make making possible, right? So in the comments, you'll see a link to our website, njmakersday.org. You'll also see it on the bottom of your screen. And you can check that out to learn more about New Jersey Makers Day and how we work and how we're funded. We are a nonprofit, so we do rely on donations and sponsorships and things like that to make our programming possible, both to the public and to our sites that we support. Those are the libraries and the public schools and museums in our community that carry on New Jersey Makers Day projects on their own. So some of you may have even had kits to come through your libraries or other live streams that are happening in your libraries and schools. definitely join those as well. So now let's get ready to explore the world of coding with our next presenter, Tyler Blust of Game U. Hi, Tyler. Tyler Blust is a graduate of Ohio University's Scripps Communication with a BS in Games and Animation, has been involved in a variety of projects, including Bulk Dominoes VR, Kinetic Rush, and Super Sloth. Another of his works, UNDR H20, was elected Most Innovative Game at GDEX 2018, and has since been nominated for various other awards, including Best Art, Best in Show, and Crowd Favorite. Tyler also co-founded Guesswork VR, the development studio behind two of his works. In his free time, Tyler enjoys experimenting with new mediums of expression, working on innovative projects, writing stories, and building new worlds and exploring our own. And Tyler, we will definitely have time for a Q&A after his session. So if you have questions about game coding for games and things like that, feel free to throw them in the comments. And I'm going to pass it off to you, Tyler.
Cool. How's it going? Yeah, as she said, my name's Tyler. We're going to make a game today. Just because everybody gets confused about the name of the one game. It's Underwater, the UNDR H20. But everything else, you nailed it. So I appreciate the intro. So today we're going to make a game very similar to the classic Mario games, which is called a platformer. So we're going to be using what's called Construct 3, which is a free game engine that works in your browser, which is, pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can switch over to it. So if you're following along, when you get to the Construct website, I'm just going to make sure that this is actually showing. Yep, it looks like it's showing up fine. Awesome. When you go to the actual website, it's going to look like this. So if you want to make an account, you can go ahead and click register and everything like that. But what's great about Construct is they just want to get you into the engine, making some fun stuff. So we can go ahead and actually just hit try it now. And you'll see we got a free trial that pops up. They got some limitations to it. Similar limitations that you get when you make a free account. And if you want the unlimited engine, you're more than welcome to pay for this. It's actually fairly cheap compared to a lot of game engines out there. So if you do fall in love with what this does, perfect. Feel free to do that. And so what's also great about this is that they come in with a lot of tutorials in here for you. A lot of projects you can start with and look at how to make games that may seem familiar. And I should clarify, this is a 2D game engine. So I know a lot of you probably play 3D games that are very popular out there, like the latest Mario games, Super Smash Bros, Fortnite, whatever games you're playing are 3D, and you need probably a more advanced engine to make that stuff in. But 2D games are just as popular. Mostly phone games and things like that you play now. And that's what Construct 3 is great at. So instead of using one of these examples or templates, we're actually just going to make a fresh project. And we can go ahead and click New Project up here. And we're going to want to type in a name. So I'm just going to call it Platformer, which your autocorrect will try to say it's not a word, but for game designers, it is. And for everything else in here, you can leave it the same. We don't need to get in the weeds with that stuff. So here is Construct. And so on the left side of your screen, I'm just going to kind of hit everything that's here, and we'll go through it again. The left side of your screen is Properties. This is where we're going to be messing with settings and stuff like that throughout the project. In the middle here, this white space is the game itself. This is where we're making the game. And you'll see when I clicked in here that this entire area over here changed. And you'll see this window change a lot based on what we're clicked on. So to move around to here, you can push down on your mouse wheel, and that's going to change your cursor into the four arrows. This allows you to pan your screen. Get very comfortable with doing that because it's going to allow you to edit your game a lot quicker. If you want to zoom in like this, you want to hold down Control on your keyboard and use the mouse wheel to push in. If you're using a touch keyboard or a touchpad, you can do the same with 2 fingers to pan and then pinch in and out to zoom in and out. So you might be wondering why there's this gray box in here. That's going to be important because this gray box, when we hit play and start the game, imagine that that gray box is your full computer screen or your full phone screen. That is how much space you have when the game is live. So that doesn't mean we can't make the level and game bigger and fill this whole area, but at one time, this is the size that's going to be viewable on your screen. Now up here on the right, this is our project menu. This is where all of the objects and art and everything is going to sit, is in this project window. And then down here is layers. We probably won't have to get into layers today, but layers is, imagine like layers of cake. It's different levels within the game that lets you put, background art, middle ground art, foreground art, and layer some stuff like that. So I'm going to just check, make sure there's no comments or anything. Looks good. Cool. So from here, we're going to go ahead and create our first piece of art. So to create something in this game or in Construct, you right click on the mouse and you're going to click Insert New Object. You're going to get this menu that has a bunch of different object types on it. If you scroll around, the one we're looking for is called Sprite. You might have heard Sprite before. It's not the drink. But a sprite is actually a 2D piece of art in a video game. And you might even be familiar with that little guy. I think he's from Space Invaders, a classic arcade game from, I think it was the 70s or 80s. And we're going to go ahead and name this player. So now the one thing that's super important when you're making games, especially big ones, is naming stuff. If you don't name your objects and items in a project, it's going to get out of control really quick. Because if we don't type in a name, it's just going to be called Sprite. And say you have 20 different sprites, Sprite 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's confusing for anybody else that's going to be working on the project, and probably you. So you want to make sure you type in a name that makes sense. So for us, this is going to be our player. So we're going to go ahead and click Insert. So now our cursor is turned into this crosshair. It's looking for us to click within our level here to create the object. So if we left click on the mouse, it's going to pop up a new window. And this is our editor. This is going to allow us to make the piece of art. And there's a lot going on here, so we're going to take a little bit at a time. So first over here are some tools to draw with. So one is like a paintbrush. This lets you draw like this. You're able to change the size and the hardness, which is going to be how soft the edges are. Even the opacity, you can make it a little invisible if you want to as you click. But that's not what I like to do, so I'm going to delete this with the eraser tool right here. You can also draw specific shapes like this using these tools right here. You can also make it so they don't fill or that they don't have a border. There's different settings that are fun to mess with. Again, that's not the way I'm going to draw our character. So I'm going to erase that. So what I like to do is I like switching to the paint tool, or the paint bucket tool, which is what fills in the entire block itself. So I'm going to make our character red, sort of like Mario, since this is a Mario-based themed game, I guess. And when I click, that's going to fill in the whole block. So what's cool is we can start layering additional art on top of it. So I'm going to give this character some eyes by drawing. Oops. I think I accidentally hit the shortcut there. Undo that. Undo that as well. So you got undo and redo up here if you need those tools. I'm going to switch back over here. There we go. I'm going to try drawing that again. So I'm going to give him some eyes, make him a little funny looking. And then I'm going to put some pupils in there. So a good way to put little circles is to actually use that brush tool. Just like this. And we can actually go back in there with the red that we were using, and you can grab the colors you already used by using this eyedropper tool here. If you click that, it's going to find that color for you so you can grab it again. And then I'm going to go back in here and I can shade that in a little bit so it actually looks more like a real eye. And like they said in my introduction, I am a programmer, so don't judge my art, please. I leave that to the artist most of the time. And then there's this really fun thing to do to just give your eyes a little bit more character, is to put these little reflective dots in there. And so the last thing I'm going to add to this guy is a mouth. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool to draw this one, just like this. Except I didn't want that border, so I'm going to undo that. Turn off the border. See, the border color is picking up the secondary color down here, which you can switch between like this. But I'm going to turn it off so that I just get a solid color. And then I'm going to give it maybe some buck teeth. Just like that. And then we got a little character. So we can always add to this later, and if we have some time, I'll show you how we can animate them. But for now, we're gonna do this. So the way we actually save this art is very odd. We can actually just hit the X up here, and that's gonna save it. And you'll see we got our character in the game. So I'm gonna go check, make sure there's no issues. Cool. Okay, so the next step is we're going to want to resize our character, because right now, remember, as I said, this screen right here is gigantic, is our phone screen, our computer screen, and our character is taking up 90% of it. And I'll actually show you what that looks like. If I hit play, which is this play button up here, and we'll be coming back to it a lot, this allows us to see the game we're building. And you'll see that is a gigantic character. We don't need that. So when you click it, you'll see all these little boxes appear around it. And these let you change the size of the character in a multitude of different ways. But what you'll notice is it doesn't scale what's called uniformly, which is where it keeps the same square shape. To do that, we need to click and hold Shift. And that's going to scale it and keep the same ratio for us so it doesn't look weird. So I'm going to make it a lot smaller, and I'm going to zoom in. And here's another tip for another way to pan. Say you don't have a mouse wheel. If you hold the space bar, it turns it into that same tool. So I'm going to move my character up here. So really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and make another object for our character to stand on, right? Because a platformer needs platforms. So I'm going to make a very simple platform by inserting a new object, going to a sprite, calling it platform, and hitting insert. And remember, you got to click when you have the crosshair. And I'm just going to fill it in with a solid color. And let's do a brown color. Then you got to click the paint bucket tool, fill it in, hit the X. Now we have our platform in here. So I'm going to go ahead and make it smaller and put it right under it. So let's check the size again by hitting preview. Perfect. That sizing looks a little bit better. So the next step is actually getting this guy moving around. Another great thing about Construct is that it gives us the tools to get started quickly. So if we click our player, we're going to see all of these properties over here. You'll recognize a couple of them, like player for the name. See the position and size. Those are things that we were messing with. But what we're looking for is this one called behaviors right here. And behaviors is basically pre-written code or functionality that lets us do some stuff. So if I click this blue behaviors button right here, a new window pops up. And it's asking for player behaviors. So we're going to add a new one. And these are basically, like I said, pre-written code to let us do some stuff quick. So the one we're going to look for first is literally what we're making, a platformer. And this one's called platform. And when you click it, you'll see a tooltip pop up down here at the bottom. So it says platform, jump and run along platforms, which means it's going to make our character solid so it collides with stuff. And it lets us jump through objects, which I don't know if we'll be doing much of that today. But if I click add and hit the X and go back to play, I'm now affected by gravity. But the problem is I disappeared off the screen. So that's not fun. We need to be able to actually collide with the platform that was right under us. So I said a key word when I said the platform, or the platform tool made us solid. So our player might be able to run into stuff, but the platform doesn't know that it's solid. So we need to add a behavior to the platform itself as well. So let's click behaviors on the platform this time, add a new behavior, and we're going to look for what's called solid, which is right here. And down here it says make the object impassable so their objects cannot move or fall through it, which is what we need because we're currently falling through it. So let's go ahead and try this again and hit play. And look at that. So to move, you can actually use the arrow keys on your keyboard. And you can hit the up arrow to jump. So that's the other thing that the platform behavior gave our player the ability to do. But there's a couple other problems. One would be if I fall down here, I disappear. Most games, as the camera, follow your player around, which thankfully is just another behavior that we can add in here. So if we click our player and go to behaviors again, which is now moved down because you'll see that there's a bunch of settings for the platform now. And feel free in your own time to mess with these, such as like double jump or how fast you fall or how quickly you get up to speed or how fast you go. A lot of fun things you can mess with to make different games. So we're going to go ahead, though, and add another behavior. We're going to click add new behavior, and we're going to look for scroll to. This one says always center the view on this object or at the midpoint of multiple objects. So this way, the view of our player or our camera is going to be on the player. So let's give that one a shot. Let's click play. So now as you move around, fall down, the camera falls with it. Perfect. So now that we have that set up, we're going to go ahead and give it one more behavior because you might have noticed that it kept falling forever outside of this white space. So the last thing we need to add is what's called bound to layout, which is this one right here. Stop an object leaving the layout. So I've been calling this white area our level, but in construct terms, it's called a layout, as you can see right up here. So it's called layout 1. And so this way it'll be bounded by this area here. So I'm going to click play one more time. And I'm going to fall down. And now you'll see I actually hit the bottom. Now I can't jump down here, but we now have a limitation to what we're working with. I want to make sure that my play is actually popping up for the screen for everybody.
It looks good. Yeah.
It does? Okay. Mm-hmm. I was worried that it was popping up in a new window and you guys wouldn't be able to see it. Great. So now that we have this set up, I'm going to add a couple more platforms for us to jump between. So I'm going to try to remember what the shortcut is real quick. Control. Cool. So what we can do is we can actually duplicate platforms pretty quickly. If you hold down Control on your keyboard, and then click and drag any of these platforms, it's going to duplicate them. So you can quickly populate a level just by doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and just make some platforms to be jumping to. Just like this. It's not going to be the most challenging level because we're more just setting some stuff up. But now I actually have some stuff to jump to. Thing is, in every game, you have a win condition and a loss condition. In the classic Mario games, it was the win condition was to make it to a flag. A loss condition was when you fell off the map or you got hit by an enemy. So let's start by making a loss condition. That's what actually makes this a game. Some challenge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new object. I'm going to go to sprite, and I'm going to call this, let's call it lose zone. We're going to click insert. Now I'm going to click in the map again, and I'm going to make this red. And I'm going to fill it in, click X, and I'm going to make this take up the whole bottom of my level. So now that's going to be considered my loss zone. But to make this function correctly, we're actually going to have to get into constructs coding because they don't have a behavior for this. So the way this works is we're actually going to go up to these tabs up here and click Event Sheet 1. And so this event sheet is where we add the code. And if you ever use Scratch or another coding language, this is going to be somewhat familiar, but maybe somewhat different. On the left-hand side, when I click, once I click Add Event, on the left-hand side, you're going to see events that are basically things that we're looking to happen. You know, this object collided with another, or, you know, this amount of time has passed, and on the right-hand side, we put what should happen because of that. You'll see down here, it's listed as conditions and actions. On collision with monster, destroy the monster, right? So we're going to do that with ours. So we're going to click Add Event. And for us, it's when the player collides with the lose zone. So we're going to click Player, click Next, and you're going to see all of these conditions that are built in. The one we're looking for is actually highlighted for us, which is pretty nice. And it's on collision with another object. We're going to click Next, and we're going to do Click to Choose. It's looking for which object we want to collide with. And for us, it's going to be the lose zone. When we click Done, you're going to see an event pop up here. So now we have to add an action. So our action, we're going to add a couple to this, but let's start with the basic one. For us, we're going to go to System, and we're going to look for Restart Layout. So this, what this is going to do is when we collide with our lose zone, it's going to register that we lost, and it's going to restart the level. So if I click play, and I fall down, I lost. So restart. So every time I collide with it, it does that. But we got to do a couple more things. Typically, when you lose a game, it gives you a couple seconds to think about it. It doesn't instantly start like that. I usually like to call it, you know, letting the player think about what they did wrong. That way, the next time, they don't repeat the same mistake. So we're going to actually add what's called wait. So if we go to System, oops, click Next, and type in wait. So we can actually type stuff up in here to make it pop up faster. We're going to click wait, and we can put any number of seconds we want. So I'm going to put 3. And I'm going to drag that above Restart Layout because we want to wait to restart the layout. So if I click play now, and I fall off the map, It waited 3 seconds to restart it, right? Works perfect. So the only other thing, the other two things that I'd like to do is, one, you would like it to have some sort of visual effect, because right now it just looks like we fell behind this red block and we don't know that we've technically lost. So to do that, we can add a particle system that looks like the character disappeared and lost. So to do that, we got to go back to the layout, and we're going to right click and insert a new object. And this time we're going to look for particles, and we'll call this lose particle. We're going to click insert. So for this one, you can kind of do, draw whatever you want in here. I'm going to do, my favorite to do is just to put some random circles like this. But particles are fun, so you can really just draw some crazy stuff in here and then watch what it looks like in the end. But I'm going to do that. And you'll see that particles look like this right now. And I'm going to click play so you can kind of see what the particles look like when you first make them. So I'm going to click play. And you'll see how it just shoots this kind of the drawing out that I made, which is cool. But that's not necessarily what we want. I'm imagining more of like a poof or burst of these things going out, not spraying like this. So to change that, when we click on our particles, we can drop down here and look at the properties right here. And you'll see the type is continuous spray. I'm going to change that to one shot. And so now when I click play and look at it, it does a one shot just like that, which is a lot closer to what I'd like. So now the next thing is it's only poofing in one direction. I'm going to change that. And I'm going to change that to 360 degrees, which is how many degrees are in a circle. And you'll see that that line right here, that red line on the particle changed. So if I change this number back to, like 90, you'll see that it shows the angle that it's spraying at. 360 means that it's all the way around. I'm going to hit play on that and see what that looks like. That looks a little better. A couple other things you can change is like the speed. Like that one shoots pretty fast, so I'm going to change it down to 50. You have size, you have opacity, you have grow rate. So grow rate will actually make it grow, and size as it bursts away. So I'm going to try changing that to like 15, and I'm going to make the size smaller. And there's no right answer down here. This is really just what you want it to be like. Speed randomizer, that'll change the speed of each particle, a random number. So let's see what that changed it to look like. See, it looks all crazy now. So I'm gonna leave it like that. And then to actually get this spawning, we want to first drag this outside the layer, because really we don't want this spawning just at start there. So I'm going to push this out here, and I'm going to go back to the event sheet. And in the event sheet, I'm going to add another action for our on collision with lose zone. And for this, I'm going to go back to system, and I'm going to look for create object. Look, it's already highlighted for us. It's like the game knows what we want to make. So I'm going to click create object, and I'm going to click next. And I'm going to say I want to create a lose particle. So we're going to ignore layer, but we have to give it an X and Y coordinate. So if you learned, anything about graphs yet in school, games exist similar to graphs. So a 2D game exists on the X-axis and the Y-axis. Now, if you're making a 3D game, you're adding the Z-axis as well for depth. But for a 2D game, we're working on an X and Y. And, we're not going to know where the player is going to lose. So we can't just type in a number here like 5 and 10 or something like that. We actually have to grab that information from the player itself. And what's cool is we can actually type in player here, and then type in a dot, And so now it's going to grab the player's X position in the game to use for the position of creating this object. We can actually do the same thing for the Y. If I click done, you'll see that it adds create object loose particle on layer 0 at player X and player Y. And I'm going to drag that up to the top. That way it does that right away. So now if I click play, and I fall off, boom, it disappeared. So now our game has an official loss condition and lets you see it. So real quick, I want to add a win condition. So that way, if you guys want to make your own games outside of this, you can. So a way to do that is if I insert a new object, sprite, I'm going to call this win zone, and hit insert. And I'm going to click. And I'm going to fill this in with just a solid color. I'm going to make this simple. And I put this on my last platform over here. That'll be the win zone. And I'm actually going to make a new layout for the win. So I'm going to, up here where it says layouts, I'm going to right click and say add layout. And say add layout only. And I'm going to call this layout win screen. And so a layout can end up, be multiple levels. If you want to turn this win zone into taking you to another level, you can. I'm just going to make it take us to a win screen. And so I'm going to insert a new object, and I'm going to look for text. And this can be pretty simple. In text, insert, click here. I'm just going to say you win. I'm going to make that pretty big. So you actually have to change the settings down here in properties, just like everything else. So I'm going to center some stuff. And I'm going to increase the size here by a lot. Just like that. So the last thing we got to add is the code to switch to that. So if I go to my event sheet, and just like before, I do add event, player, and look for on collision with another object, click next, click to choose my win zone, and I add an action. And this time I'm going to go to system, and we're going to look for, let's see, go to layout. And I can actually select which layout I want to go to. I want to go to the win screen. So if I click play, and I jump on over to the end of my platform, and I hit the win zone, boom. So just like that, we've made a game. So of course, there's a lot of other stuff you can do in Construct. You can add, more types of objects that can hurt you, like spikes. You can add lives. You could add some enemies that shoot bullets at you. The possibilities are endless, and I recommend taking a look at Construct. And if you really like Construct, at GameU we are teaching classes in this. We're making a bunch of different games and different programs, but Construct 3 is one of our favorites. And so if you really like this, GameU is the place to learn directly from instructors and professionals just like me. So I was going to leave it there, so there's some time for a Q&A at the end.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you while you still have this up, do you have a favorite action or behavior that you can do in Construct?
My favorite. I really like the particles, but another cool thing that I like to do is, it might take too much time to do it now, but you can actually, if we animated this character, you could have the eyes. So like if I duplicate this and think I should, yeah, I can mirror it. Oops, I didn't mean to make it change colors. I can mirror it so that now it has two different directions that it's facing, kind of like it's turning its head. And we could make it, you know, in the controls that if you're holding the left arrow, our looks to the left. If you're holding the right arrow, our guy's looking to the right. So that's a really fun little thing that you can add. I've also added it where the character blinks, and it gives your game a lot more life when you add some animation to it like that.
That's awesome. Someone wants to know, can you add sound effects and music?
You can, yes. So there's a whole folder in here for sounds. You can actually import sounds, you know, drag and drop them in there. You can add background music. You can add collision music, loss music, all sorts of stuff.
That's awesome. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you got into game design.
Yeah. Yeah. Should I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, you can stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Switch back over. Yeah. So it's funny. I grew up playing a lot of video games, as I'm sure a lot of kids do today. And I think my parents gave up on the fight of video games not being a huge part of my life. And my mom found out that in college, you could actually study to do this stuff. And I liked art, I liked puzzles, and I liked games. So they kind of pushed me into majoring in video game design. And it was through, you know, going to college for it that I learned that, you know, a lot of people want to do this stuff and it's a viable career path. And video games are the biggest, you know, media industry in the world. So it's been a lot of fun and it's challenging. And I can thank my parents for really pushing me into this. So.
Do you have any advice for kids that might want to pursue game design?
It's the same thing I tell all the kids at Game U. It's to start now. I didn't get to start making games until I was 19 years old. And man, do I wish I had the opportunity to start when I was 6, which is when we started teaching Game U students. And what's cool is you can start learning it now, you know, online with Game U or, you know, taking art classes at school. Because video games is really marrying a bunch of different careers into one. You know, there's artists, there's programmers, there's sound designers, there's project managers, there's marketing majors. You know, the video games just take so many different types of people that you're bound to love one of the things if you want to make and get into this industry.
That's awesome. And I just have one final question for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about Game U? What is Game U and how do people learn more about it?
Yeah, so Game U is an after-school program where we teach kids how to make video games and adults as well. And what's cool is every instructor is a professional in the industry. So they're a lot like me who have made games that are published out there on Steam or other websites where you can actually play them. And in the classroom, we teach you how to make stuff that are similar. You know, we do 2-month curriculum units where we hit different genres of games. So platformer is one of them. You'd actually spend 8 weeks with us making a platformer that does a lot more than what we did in the 30 minutes today. Or flying games or fighting games. You know, you think of it, we can probably make it. So we do group classes, we do one-on-one classes, and summer camps as well, which are coming up soon. So if you want to learn more, you can just go to game-u.com, and website's got a bunch of cool information.
That's awesome. Thank you. Any final words?
No, if you had fun today, keep doing it. It's so fun to make games and have your friends play them. And, you know, keep playing games too. We need people playing games if we want to make more. So
that was great, Tyler. Thank you. Thank you to Game U. And before we introduce today's final presenter, we just have another brief word from another NJMD Live sponsor, Xplorably. big thank you to Xplorably for sponsoring us today, and they're definitely worth checking out. They have awesome kits that are great for individual use, but also groups, whether you're a teacher teaching a class or in a Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop. They are definitely an awesome opportunity to get some hands-on STEM experience. So thank you again, Xplorably. And now to introduce our last featured speaker and facilitator for today, Mike Carroll, who will be exploring the inventor's mindset with us. Hi, Mike. Mike is an instructional coach in the Abington School District. He has a passion for low-cost projects so all students can learn about making and science. His book, Scrappy Circuits, will launch on Kickstarter in the near future, and his website is www.scrappycircuits.com, which you can see on the bottom of your screen. And welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. So I am an instructional coach in the Abington School District. And for a long time before, I was an elementary school teacher. And I loved taking things apart as a kid. I loved putting things back together. And I loved teaching that to kids. And, there's some barriers if you ever try and teach that to kids. If you go on Amazon and type in STEM set, you can get some $200-300 price tags for some of the things that you could find there. And it doesn't need to be that expensive. So Scrappy Circuits, which is what my book is about, is all about how you can take apart things just like these dollar store tea lights, and you can take them apart and kind of remix them and invent with them. So you take them apart and add them to little pieces of cardboard, and you can have some fun. So I'm going to give you, that's the quick overview, but a little more. So I'm going to start at the end. I think that's a good place to start. Is not too long ago, I got this really sweet tweet from somebody in India, if I remember correctly, who, in learning about inventing was not part of what they regularly do, but using Scrappy Circuits kind of opened that up as an option for this girl, which I thought was amazing. I've never been to India, so it's so cool to have these kind of Scrappy Circuits ideas traveling farther than me. So, can you teach young kids to invent? Yes, you can. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. It's very safe. And above all, it is very fun. So we teach kids the basics of reading, writing, so many things when they're in elementary school, but we don't really teach them the basics of how the things around them work, the basics of inventing. We don't have to go really far down that path because you can. But just as we teach the basics of math, I think elementary school age kids should get the basics of inventing. And that's really where Scrappy Circuits comes in. So my kind of task or challenge to everyone is to find $3 and to head over to the dollar store. So dollar stores are great too, because as we know, rest in peace, Radio Shacks and things like Radio Shacks are slowly fading. And you can go online and then you pay shipping and different things. But if you're taking apart things from the dollar store, there's a high level of access and a lot of different communities there. So it's a great place to source some material. So scrounge together $3, head over to that dollar store, and you're going to buy 3 things. The first one is a small set of screwdrivers. Usually you get a whole set of these guys for about $3 or about $1. I still use the ones from the dollar store all the time. They're great. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing is going to be a personal fan. One of these fans. They sell them at most dollar stores. They're sometimes somewhat seasonal. So now's a great time to start finding them at dollar stores. You can always go online to a lot of dollar stores have websites too. But these are great. And then that third item is going to be a mystery item. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. A great way to kind of learn about how things work is to take one of these apart. It costs $1. The goal is not to take it apart and use it again in the future. The goal is to take it apart and learn about it. Almost like you would dissect a frog or dissect a worm. I remember doing both of those when I was a kid. And being very meticulous about how you dissect what you take out, thinking and looking at each element and wondering the function of it, and then labeling those elements as you take them apart, and really having that meticulous mindset of a scientist when looking at something that is an invention, that somebody invented and really is one of the things that just populates the world around us. So you take this apart, you're going to find a few things. You're going to find there's a motor. I'm having trouble taking it apart myself, but it's see-through, luckily. So there's a motor in there. There's a switch right here we're going to talk about a little bit. Naturally, these are going to inspire some questions. We are so lucky to have something like YouTube around where you can really just search and say, type in, how does a motor work? And Jeremy Fielding is one of my favorite YouTubers. He has these great in-depth, hands-on, practical videos on a lot of really, really simple ideas, just like how does a DC motor work? So once you're taking this apart, again, our ideas, we're not fixing it. We're not taking it just like peeking under the hood. We're taking it apart. We're really just, in a way, destroying it, dissecting it to learn about the parts inside of it. And the best part of any invention, in my opinion, is the switch. Switches are so cool, so fun, and so really underappreciated, in my opinion. A lot of times when we think of a switch, we think of just this light switch at the top of the screen. But switches are all over the place. Our keyboard is full of switches. An arcade game is full of switches. Remote controls, full of switches. And even things that we might not realize, like the trunk of our car. We open the trunk of our car, all of a sudden the light goes on. We kind of take that for granted. There's a switch embedded in that trunk that says, oh, this is opening. This person needs some light. We're going to give them light. Games like this whack-a-mole game, all switches. Video games, Dance Dance Revolution, airbags, even this motion sensor for lights or camera. All of those are switches. And to me, switches are my favorite part of any invention. Okay. So here is a much better view of the switch that is inside of this dollar store fan. What's really cool about it is it's really simple. I'm just moving that little plastic piece up, which pushes that metal arm against the body of the motor, and electricity is traveling through that and then completes the circuit. So because this is a cheap dollar store item, they're really trying to minimize the amount of parts in it, minimize this, there's no circuit board or anything in this. It's just a motor and some batteries that connect and disconnect to that motor. Now, last summer, I read this wonderful book, and it recently came out as a graphic novel too, called Sapiens. And it's all about human evolution, deep stuff, really interesting stuff. But one of the parts that really kind of connected with me, having loving inventing and loving talking about inventing, is this part. The domestication of fire was a sign of things to come. It was the first important step on the way to the atom bomb. Now, the book kind of offers this idea of like, how come frogs haven't made the atom bomb yet? How come turtles haven't invented or haven't built bridges? It's why are humans very different than a lot of the animals that are on Earth? And the domestication of fire was really kind of one of those stepping points in that evolution, according to the author. And when I think of this, and when I thought of this, I really thought not only the domestication of fire, but really the domestication of electricity. And that's what a switch is. A switch is the domestication of electricity. We have electricity out there. Now we're learning how to control it and have it do different things. I'm a big Simpsons fan, so that's why that's there. So now to that third mystery item, which I kind of spoiled earlier, is an LED tea light. These LED tea lights are 2 for $1, and that's an expensive price. If you buy them from Amazon or somewhere in bulk, you're going to get a lot better price than 50 cents each. They're great because they have a lot of valuable parts in them. And that's where Scrappy Circuits comes in. So first, actually, I'm just going to take this guy apart a little bit. It has this little tab that I'm just going to pull out. It's already on. I'm going to turn it off. There it is. I'm just going to open this battery compartment. I have a 3-volt battery in there. Then I'm going to take out. I'm going to put that aside. Just a little coin cell battery. Fun note is these individually sell for about $1 each at the dollar store. So if you ever need these, you could buy a pack of 2 LED tea lights and get 2 for $1 as opposed to 1. Then I just kind of pry it open And then I have an LED in there too. All right, so now for 50 cents, I have these other parts. We'll talk about them. But I get to do this, which if anyone has ever taught electricity to kids, when kids get to make a light up, a little LED, a bulb, whatever it might be, their face lights up at the same exact time. They are so excited and happy and proud and curious too when they do this. So really the first step in Scrappy Circuits is to kind of take this apart and do this. And that kind of brings me to Scrappy Circuits. So Scrappy Circuits is a book that I wrote all about teaching kids to invent, and it's by taking apart things around them. So I have a nice kind of a preview copy as we're in the final steps here. It will be available on Kickstarter soon. I was really hoping to have it available for this day, but it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. But if you are curious, if you go to scrappycircuits.com, you can sign up for an email list, and I will send you an email when the Kickstarter is live. So Scrappy Circuits was invented by me, Mike Carroll, and my friend Chris Connors. And here is the two of us at Maker Faire talking about Scrappy Circuits. And I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but let me just put it all together. Scrappy Circuits is this idea that you take things that are very common, very inexpensive, just like these LED tea lights, and you take them apart, you learn how they work, and then you remix them and put them back together in a little bit. So that's what we are going to do in a little bit. So Chris and I, when we worked on Scrappy Circuits, we went to the dollar store. We filled up 2 carts worth of stuff, and we just, for a week, took up things apart, put things back together, saw what parts were in there, saw how we could remix things, and really kind of came up with all these ideas for bricks, and then also put a thread through it, a beginning place and an ending place. Well, actually not an ending place, a beginning place, which is the LED tea light. Scrappy Circuits is a self-made electronics tinkering kit sourced from a 50-cent LED tea light and an imagination. There are 5 core bricks that can be made for around $1. Many bonus bricks can be made to add to an inspiring and growing network of bricks. So I'm going to go back to this though. So when I opened, I talked about how if you jump on Amazon, and don't now, because we're having this lovely conversation. But later, if you jump on Amazon and type STEM toys, I mean, you're finding things that are $200-$300. And if you're a teacher in a classroom, if you're buying that and bringing that in, you're treating it with kid gloves. You're being very careful the whole time. And kids can take turns using it, but nobody can really kind of like monopolize their time and really have that free play exploring experience because you're worried about it breaking and it has to be shared. That's not true with Scrappy Circuits. $1 a kid. And if you're talking about a class, maybe around $20, everybody can make their own set of Scrappy Circuits, keep their own set of Scrappy Circuits, play with their own set of Scrappy Circuits, break their own set of Scrappy Circuits, fix their own set of Scrappy Circuits, all of that for around $1 a kid. This is the first set of Scrappy Circuits. So we took apart the LED tea light. We combined it with 12 or 11, depending on how you do things, even 10 sometimes, binder clips, and 2 paper clips, and some foil. And those things we made our first set of Scrappy Circuits. So I'm going to repeat that list because it is kind of important. 2 paper clips, a case of binder clips, which I have right here, some foil, and then cardboard. And when you think too, foil, most people have that in their house already. Cardboard, most schools, the houses have that already. So you're really just going to the dollar store and picking up that 2-pack of LED tea lights and maybe some binder clips and maybe some paper clips. But for the most part, you have what you need at home, which is one of I think, the fun parts about Scrappy Circuits. So the first thing you're going to do is your battery brick. So here's my 3-volt battery. All right. I'm going to push everything else aside. And I'm going to take my cardboard, and I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to cut There's not a lot of measuring and precise details with Scrappy circuits. I make Scrappy circuits kind of like I cook. I just grab things and throw them in the pot and see what happens. We're going to take our battery and we're going to take 3 binder clips. All right. The first binder clip is going to be just down like that. All right. And then that's going to be touching the positive side, the flat, smooth side. Really doesn't matter which side. It's just this is kind of what I prefer, I guess, of the battery is going to touch that binder clip. So in advance, I'm just going to grab my marker and put a plus sign on that side because that binder clip is the terminal for the positive side of our battery. Now on the other side, I'm going to take another binder clip. I'm going to make sure these two don't touch. I'm going to flip the arm so it's now touching the top. Okay, so now I'm going to again mark. That's the negative terminal for our battery. And then, because I like to do other things, I can't hold it all day. I'm going to use this binder clip. This binder clip does not really perform any function in the battery, or at least the terminals. It just holds it all together. Oop, let me get it in frame, sorry. Just holds everything together. All right, so that is our battery brick. First brick done. Second brick, LED brick. So I'm going to take my LED. I'm going to again cut a little piece of cardboard. I have my cardboard. I have 2 binder clips. Now I kind of equated this to cooking earlier. And another way this really equates to cooking is tin foil is like butter for cooking. So if anyone's in the kitchen, they want to make something better, throw some butter in and it makes it better. I'm lactose intolerant and I'm still admitting that butter is amazing and makes everything taste better. And tin foil makes everything flow better, the electricity flow better. So you don't need this, but I'm going to just kind of crumple up some aluminum foil. I'm going to spread the legs of my LED and I'm just going to kind of wrap each leg, making sure that the foil doesn't touch the other side. Just wrap a little bit around each leg. And again, that's just going to give the electricity more of a chance of kind of flowing through your binder clips and completing your circuit. Now I'm going to put it right here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 binder clips. Now all of the binder clips parts conduct electricity. The arm conducts a little bit better than this metal part. To increase the chance of the electricity traveling through at a high rate through this black part, I'm going to actually open it up and I'm going to take some sandpaper. This is actually a sanding block. And I'm just going to go over it a little bit, get the inside. I'm going to do that to both of these binder clips. That just, again, kind of ups the chances of electricity traveling through. You don't have to do it for all of the bricks. And you can see it's just a little more silver there. You don't have to do it for all of the bricks, but it does help with this LED brick. And here's the one I used. Okay. So we have our first 2 bricks. Now inside of an LED, this might be hard to see. There's always a big part and a small part. I always say it kind of looks like a Mandalorian's helmet. Inside it kind of looks like this. And then there's this part. All right. The leg that is attached to this is always the negative leg, and the leg attached to the smaller part is always the positive. You also know that the positive leg is always a little bit longer too. So it kind of looks like a Mandalorian helmet. So looking at this, and again, it might be hard for you guys to see, this is my negative terminal and this is my positive terminal. So there we have our LED brick. All right, so there are some other bricks that we're going to build in a little bit, but just to test everything out, I'm going to attach my alligator clip from the positive part of my battery to the positive part of my LED. Electricity always has to travel in a circuit or a circle. So I'm going to attach the negative one. And let's see, lots of pressure. Does it work? It doesn't work, of course. All right, but we're going to try a few things and get it to work. I'm going to squeeze up. We got a little glimmer there. I'm going to squeeze. Make sure these binder clips or these alligator clips are on tight. The squeeze right there. So we are getting a little glimmer. You know what? I'm actually going to cut a little bit off of each side. I think the binder clip is barely touching. If it touches a little more, I think we might have better luck. You know what? Add some more foil. Like I said, butter makes everything better. Foil makes everything work better. All right, we got it for a little bit there. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these binder clip or these alligator clips, and now because I'm connecting right to the LED, I know it's this binder clip that's the issue. This one's working fine. The electricity is traveling into my LED light, but something with this binder clip is not working. So I'm actually going to disconnect it, sand it a little more. You know what? Even add a little more foil. Now let's see. I'm going to disconnect there. All right. So now we have our LED light lit up. All right. The next switch, very, very simple, is a binder clip switch. And again, switches, if you remember, are my favorite part of a circuit. They're how we can control electricity. So I'm just going to take 2 binder clips. Now this is a toggle switch, and what that means is it's just like the switches that you'll find in your house, or your lights for your house, I mean, because you turn it on by going like that and it stays on until you turn it off. So other switches, and we're going to talk about the other one in a moment, is a momentary switch, but this is a toggle switch, meaning it'll stay on and then it'll be off. So I'm going to grab another alligator clip. And switches, you don't have to worry about a plus side and a negative side. Electricity can travel through a switch in either direction because it's really just interrupting the flow of electricity. It's either on or it's off. So just like a light switch in your house, on, off. Hope you can see that. Yeah. So that is our binder clip switch. The next one is a push switch. And I'm looking at the time. I kind of want to hurry up. So you can see this push switch is a binder clip, another binder clip with the arm down. And the way it works is you push on the paper clip and it turns it on. And then you release it, turns off. So this would be more like a keyboard switch or a keyboard key, because when you hit down that letter, you don't want it to stay on until you release it, or you stay on forever. You actually just want it to stay on for a moment. So this is a momentary switch. And then the last one, which I should have, where is it? Oh, here we go, is a dial switch. And the way this works is I have foil on both sides, and when I spin the body of the LED, then it bridges both sides and it'll turn on. And when I spin it, so where the foil doesn't bridge to both sides, it will be off. So I use the body of the LED as a switch, and we call it the dial switch. So again, those 5 switches can be made for around $1 a kid. A class, it'll be about $20, but $20 that everyone gets to explore, play with, and go home, and then make some other switches if they want. Now, when you're connecting these switches, if cost is an issue, you can make your own alligator clips out of paper clips and aluminum foil. Just twist up some aluminum foil, add a paper clip to the end. They work just as well. They slide in like that. They're not as reliable as an alligator clip. So I wouldn't use these to like problem solve. But if kids have to take this home and they don't have alligator clips, then this is a great alternative. You could do the same out of old wire or beading wire. And then here's kind of a quick pros and cons on the different types of wires you can't use, or scrappy clips you can't use, sorry. And then just like we did, you connect everything and you get your LED to light up. So here I have my push switch for this GIF. And then I thought this was fun because, again, we're controlling electricity. Just as early humans domesticated fire, we're domesticating electricity. We're teaching that to kids, and we're teaching the potential of that. Now, this in kind of a preferred manner or a recommended manner is what you would do with students in a class or an after-school club at a library. But this is not where it ends. I had to include this. I thought it was pretty funny. There are, in the Scrappy Circuit system, there are at least 30 other bonus bricks. And these are a lot of different switches. Switches are my favorite thing. I love just taking things apart in my basement and trying to invent new fun switches. So here are some of them. This is really cool. This is, if you buy one of these dollar store window alarms, you can actually make 2 bricks out of this. You can make a magic wand brick, which when you wave that popsicle stick with a magnet at the end, without touching the brick, you'll actually turn your circuit on. And you can also make a buzzer brick. So instead of your switch controlling a LED, your switch can actually control a buzzer sound. There are different action bricks. The buzzer brick, like I just talked about, a motor brick, so you can have something spin. We have alternative power bricks. So we have a servo motor on the right. When you spin that, it actually produces an electrical charge. And then on the left, we have a piezo buzzer, just like what is inside of this window alarm. And they're really cool. I could talk for a whole half an hour just about piezo buzzers, but they can actually create a small burst of electricity. So it's not a lot of electricity, but every time you tap it, it actually can turn pressure into electricity or electricity into pressure, and that's how it makes it sound. It's alarm sound. But you can use it in reverse in really cool ways. Some really cool Scrappy switches. So we have a lot of games like Thread the Needle, kind of a classic Frankenstein knife switch, tilt switch, clothespin switch, lots of fun options. And again, you can tell a lot of these are made with very accessible items, very common items, very easily found items. This is a fun one. This is a switch that if you blow in that red straw, it inflates the balloon and then closes the switch to turn your circuit on. Some fun games, like I mentioned. Tilt switch. This is a hole-in-one brick. So I would think of this one as like a game. Like you would throw a foil ball into that cup. When it lands in that cup, it's actually going to connect those 2 paper clips. When you connect those 2 paper clips, your buzzer could go off, your LED could go off, and you can make your own arcade games. If you've ever seen Cade's Arcade, I love Cade's Arcade. This is a way that you can really kind of, out of cardboard and common items, make some working arcade games. And there's no better way to end than pictures of kids excited about Scrappy Circuits. So there's my daughter in the left, my nephew, and then I forget his name, but I got this picture on Twitter on the left of somebody that was working with Scrappy Circuits in a school. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. And at some point today, go over to scrappycircuits.com and sign up for the email list. And that is for this Kickstarter for this book that is around the corner. We're finishing it up. It's full of pictures. It's full of all of these bricks. It's full of projects. It's full of a lot of different things, some ideas, some fun stories behind them. So a lot of fun stuff in here. I hope everyone had a great time listening to me. I hope everyone goes to scrappycircuits.com and signs up with their email list so we can send you a message when this is available. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. If anyone has any comments or questions for Mike, you feel free to throw them in the comments sections. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about how you got sort of into your into the maker mindset, right? How did you get into tinkering and inventing yourself?
You know what? I have to credit my parents, I think. My parents were, I grew up comfortably. I don't want to spin a sad story, but like, I'd say, "Hey, Mom, can I buy that Ninja Turtle thing?" And she would say, "No." No, like we're not spending money on that junk. So then I would go in the basement and like steal my dad's paint stirrers and coat hangers, and I would kind of make my own toys out of junk. And that kind of led to me becoming a teacher. And then also I published a book some time ago that had projects in it, and I would give it to my students and they would come back and say, you know, we went to Radio Shack and the person at Radio Shack says it's $25 for all these parts. And I would know they're, you know, inexpensive parts. It doesn't need to be that much. So I kind of found a more accessible way to reach kids that want to learn about inventing.
And I love that you just mentioned that. I was going to ask a little bit about the accessibility of your projects. I think that's a common theme we heard today and yesterday. But if you could speak a little bit more about sort of how you discovered what you could find at the dollar store to make these kits.
That was my favorite part. You know, my friend Chris and I, we just loaded up a car, and this is kind of my like relaxing hobby is going to the dollar store. I got kind of known there. The one girl who works at the local college would always be very excited when she saw me and asked me what I'm doing. But you know, it's $1. And when I think of it as an investment and an experience, and I'll just buy things and take them apart and see what parts are inside. And the nice thing about dollar stores too is they're in a lot of different communities. They're in maybe some lower socioeconomic communities, so there's more access there. And there is kind of a standard thread of products. You're going to find your personal fans there. You're going to find LED tea lights. There's some stock items that you're going to find at every one. And they're great to use to source or for kids that want to invent.
I love that. Any final words for us about sort of making or your experience writing this book or anything like that?
You know, I always tell my students to kind of be curious and take things apart. But also one thing that I do kind of always want to say is I always work with batteries. I never work with electricity from the wall. If you're talking about electricity from the wall, it can be dangerous. I say that's like a fire hose worth of electricity when everything here is like a little tiny squirt gun. Like you're not going to really harm yourself with a 3-volt battery. So I want everyone to be curious and adventurous, but not with electricity from the wall, just with little batteries.
I'm sure all the parents are thanking you for that right now. Thank you so much, Mike. Remember scrappycircuits.com. You can sign up to hear more about Mike's project and hear more about the Kickstarter. I definitely will be signing up and make sure that my library gets a copy of that. So thank you again, Mike. That was awesome. And one last thank you to all of our featured speakers for today for sharing your stories, projects, and talents with us here today. We would once again thank you to our fantastic supporters, which are the STEM Pathways Network, MapleWoodShop, StreamYard, Investors Bank, STEMsupplies.com, Xplorably, and the Pennsauken Public Library for making these 2 days of STEM and maker learning possible. The recording for yesterday's and today's events will be available on our YouTube and Facebook pages after the end of today's broadcast. New Jersey Makers Day works year-round in support of STEM and maker-centered initiatives in New Jersey, which usually culminate in our statewide New Jersey Makers Day celebration, of which all of you are participating with us today. We invite you to visit our website, njmakersday.org, to learn more about our work and become part of our statewide network. We would also like to invite you to complete our event survey and tell us what you thought about your experience with us today. The survey link is being shared in the comments area on Facebook and YouTube now. It's also on the bottom of our screen. And it's been our pleasure learning and exploring with you these last 2 days of New Jersey Makers Day. We hope you had a great experience with us and will continue to explore STEM and making. Thank you.